What if I told you that the person who gave everything, who poured their heart into everyone around them, eventually transforms into something that would leave even Carl Jung himself in absolute awe? Stay with me, because what happens to empaths after decades of selfless giving will completely shatter everything you thought you knew about human transformation. Carl Jung said that the psyche operates on a principle of compensation. When something is pushed to an extreme, the unconscious begins preparing its opposite. And nowhere is this more evident than in the empath who has spent a lifetime giving without receiving. You see, most people think that constant giving depletes a person, leaves them empty and broken. But Jung's research revealed something far more complex and, frankly, extraordinary. Here's what most people don't understand about empaths who have given for decades. And trust me, by the end of this, you'll never look at them the same way again. According to Carl Jung, the human soul keeps a ledger, not of debts owed, but of energy exchanged. The empath who gives continuously doesn't just lose their energy, they're undergoing what Jung called a process of alchemical transformation. Every act of giving, every moment of selflessness, every instance of putting others first becomes raw material for something unprecedented. But here's where it gets absolutely fascinating. Carl Jung discovered that the psyche will not allow itself to be destroyed. It has survival mechanisms that operate far below conscious awareness. The empath who gives and gives and gives is simultaneously, unconsciously, building something within themselves. Jung called this the development of the self with a capital S, the totality of the psyche that emerges only through intense life experience. Listen carefully to what happens next, because this is where the transformation becomes irreversible. According to Carl Jung's theory of psychological development, there comes a moment when the unconscious can no longer tolerate the imbalance. The empath who has given for 20, 30, 40 years reaches what Jung termed a critical threshold. Their psyche begins to rebel, not through breakdown, but through breakthrough. They start to feel something they've never felt before, a deep, undeniable knowing that something must change. And when that knowing arrives, it's absolutely unstoppable. Here's what Jung understood that most people miss. Empaths don't just give because they're kind, they give because they're trying to fill a void, to earn love, to prove their worth. But after a lifetime of this pattern, something shifts. Jung called this the integration of the shadow. The empath begins to see the truth, that their giving was never about others. It was about themselves, about their own unmet needs reflected outward. This realization doesn't make them bitter, it makes them free. Carl Jung observed that the most profound transformations happen not in a single moment, but through what he called gradual illumination. The lifetime giver doesn't wake up one day and become selfish. Instead, they slowly, methodically begin to reclaim their energy. They stop saying yes when they mean no. They stop explaining themselves to people who don't deserve explanations. They stop carrying burdens that were never theirs to carry. But here's what will absolutely blow your mind about what happens next. According to Carl Jung, there's a phenomenon he called enantiodromia, the tendency for things to transform into their opposite when taken to extremes. The empath who has given everything becomes someone who gives selectively, strategically, consciously. They don't lose their compassion, they weaponize their discernment. They become what Jung termed psychologically sovereign individuals who understand that their energy is sacred, that their time is finite, that their heart is precious. And this transformation terrifies people who benefited from their endless giving. Carl Jung said that when someone integrates their shadow, when they reclaim the parts of themselves they disowned, they become whole. The lifetime giver has disowned their right to receive, their permission to rest, their capacity to say no. But after decades of depletion, the psyche demands integration. The empath begins to understand what Jung discovered, that selflessness without self-care is not virtue. It's self-abandonment. They stop abandoning themselves, and everything changes. According to Carl Jung's research on psychological types, Empaths possess what he called feeling function dominance, but after a lifetime of giving, this function matures, it becomes refined. The empath doesn't just feel anymore, they discern, they evaluate, they choose. They develop what Jung called the thinking function to balance their feeling nature. They become complete, integrated whole, and the person who emerges is someone the world has never seen before. Here's where the psychology gets absolutely fascinating. Carl Jung discovered that suffering, when consciously processed, becomes wisdom. The empath who has given for a lifetime has accumulated decades of experience, of watching human nature, of understanding what motivates people. They've seen manipulation in all its forms. They've witnessed ingratitude disguised as entitlement. They've experienced the pain of one-sided relationships. This isn't bitterness. It's what Jung called hard-earned knowledge, and it makes them dangerous not to others but to dysfunction itself. According to Carl Jung, the individuated person is someone who has faced themselves completely, who has integrated both their light and their shadow. The lifetime giver reaches this individuation not through meditation or therapy, though these can help, but through lived experience. They've given so much that they've learned exactly what happens when you pour from an empty cup. They've loved so deeply that they understand the difference between connection and codependency. They become what Jung called psychologically complete. But here's the part that will send chills down your spine. Carl Jung said that the most powerful individuals are not those who have never been wounded, but those who have transformed their wounds into wisdom. The empath who has given for decades doesn't become hard or cold. They become clear, crystal clear. They see through manipulation instantly. They recognize energy vampires immediately. They spot emotional immaturity from across the room. And they simply walk away. No explanation, no guilt, no second-guessing. This is what Jung called conscious choice, and it's absolutely liberating. According to Carl Jung's lifetime of research, there's a final stage of psychological development he called the emergence of the self. For the lifetime giver, this emergence is both gentle and revolutionary. They don't dramatically cut people off or burn bridges. They simply, quietly, redirect their energy toward those who reciprocate. They invest in relationships that nourish them. They give to people who appreciate them. They become what Jung termed masters of their own energy. The empath who has given for a lifetime ultimately transforms into something magnificent. Not someone who stops caring, but someone who cares wisely. Not someone who becomes selfish, but someone who includes themselves in their circle of compassion. Not someone who hardens their heart, but someone who guards it carefully. Carl Jung discovered that this transformation is the natural evolution of the psyche. The giver must eventually learn to receive. The selfless must eventually embrace healthy selfishness. The empath must eventually become sovereign. This isn't failure. It's what Jung called psychological maturation. And once you understand this, you'll never see that quiet person who used to do everything for everyone the same way again, because they haven't disappeared. They've transformed. They've become whole. They've learned what Carl Jung spent his entire life teaching, that the greatest love you can give the world is a person who has learned to love themselves first. This is the psychology of the transformed empath, and it's the most beautiful, powerful, and absolutely inevitable evolution of a soul that has given everything and finally learned to give to themselves.